Thank you for joining me on the Fire Rescue Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, AZ. I find the research and resources and then provide the fire service with the so what, now what, to ensure the health and well-being of every member of our profession. Together, let's thrive. Howdy everyone, it's AZ, and you have landed on my 200th episode, which also happens to be my 3rd anniversary of the Fire Rescue Wellness Podcast. If you've been with me since the beginning, thanks for sticking around. If you're a newer listener, I appreciate you so much. As a special anniversary to me, I would really appreciate it if you headed over and gave the Fire Rescue Wellness Podcast a 5-star rating and also a review. I would really appreciate that. Today, you are going to get to hear from my friend, Dr. Kelly Kennedy. Kelly was a guest almost 3 years ago, and what we talked about today was heat-related illnesses, rhabdo, and injuries in general during training academies. And not necessarily just the initial academy, but promotional academies, specialty team academies, these things happen as well. And so we had a really great conversation. And I wanted to highlight just a funny thing. Previous guest, Mike Connor, every once in a while we exchange a flurry of text messages on one topic or another. And we were talking about academy injuries, and he said something so funny. He said, listen, if you break your toys, you can't play with them anymore. And I thought that was really a brilliant way to put it. So please enjoy the episode. Thank you for listening and have the best day ever. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Fire Rescue Wellness Podcast, where I am joined today by 2-time guest and friend, Dr. Kelly Kennedy. Say hello to the people at home.
Hi.
Kelly, I'm not sure if you know this, but it's been almost 3 years since you were last a podcast guest.
Wow, that's crazy.
It's crazy. We've had so many slumber parties since that time.
Yeah.
Kelly, I've nearly 100% decided that this is going to be my anniversary episode, my 3-year anniversary episode. So happy anniversary to us.
Happy anniversary. Wait, it's the 3-year anniversary to your podcast.
Yeah. So episode 200 happens to fall on the 3rd year anniversary of when I first had my podcast. And I think this is going to be episode 200.
Awesome.
That's I know.
Great. Congratulations.
Thanks. Before we get too far, I want to remember Kelly was on a previous episode. I'll link that in the show notes. But Kelly is an exercise physiologist. She has been an exercise physiologist for almost 30 years, and she works at a police agency. How'd I do?
Great. That's great.
I think that's really great. Also, Kelly, before we get rolling, I think the folks at home are going to appreciate our story about essential amino acids. Can we talk about that for a second?
Fine. Let's do it.
All right. Our mutual friend, Michelle, was in the gym at the ISSN conference. She was working out, and a gentleman approached her and said, here, try my essential amino acids. And Michelle, being a very nice person, took them and told us they tasted, how did she describe it?
Clumpy.
Really bad and clumpy. And so the guy grabs her at the expo hall and he's like, how'd you like the essential amino acids? And she's like, they were not good. I did not enjoy them. And he said, oh, it's just the flavor you picked. Here, take 5 additional flavors. Like, didn't he give her a box of them too?
Yeah, there were a lot of them, right?
Oh, gosh. So Kelly and Michelle and I are sitting in the back row of the conference, and Michelle is stirring up these essential amino acids in a hotel glass.
For like 45 minutes.
We actually told her she needed one of those little buzzer things like you use for your coffee. So eventually she gets it, some semblance of it into a solution, and she takes a drink and makes a face, passes it to me. I take a drink and make a face. And then poor Kelly's at the end of the line. Kelly takes a drink, makes a face, and then what happened?
I had to have some sort of emergency solution. So I unwrapped the candy jar that was in front of me, and I started trying to clean my tongue off with a piece of candy. It did work, actually.
She's scrubbing her tongue with a piece of candy.
It was like an anti-venom.
Anti-venom. But here's the best part. She texts us in the group chat, I don't know, just a couple weeks ago, and she says, guys, guess what? She had just fed one of those horrible essential amino acids to one of her officers. And he willingly drank it.
He asked me because I put all of the samples out at work. And he was like, oh, Kelly, what are these? And I was like, these are amino acids, so they're good for you, but it tastes terrible. And he's like, that's fine. I'm not bothered by taste. And I was like, okay, hold on. Please hold, camera on. I said, I'm just going to be videotaping this because my friends need to see your reaction when you try to drink this. It was terrible. He couldn't do it. He could not drink it.
Yeah. Well, and to be fair, previous guest, Tim Ziegenfuss, told me, Tim is in the supplement industry, and he told me that the bitter taste of essential amino acids is very difficult to mask. And so
it was coming through.
It was coming through loud and clear and clumpy. Okay. Now that we have the funny stories out of the way, I want to talk about something really important today. And I've hit on it on a few different episodes as just snippets, but I want to talk about heat-related illnesses. Can we do that?
Yeah.
Tell the listeners actually, what are we even referring to when we say heat-related illness?
So when we're referring to some sort of heat-related illness, it just has to do with exposure to maybe some extreme heat resulting in heat cramps, heat exhaustion, or heat stroke. And sometimes people can exhibit the signs or the symptoms, or signs and symptoms of something a little bit more sinister, which is related to heat illness, but it's really considered an accelerant. So when someone has like exertional rhabdomyolysis, it can be accelerated in conditions of heat when there's heat exposure. So that's how I would surmise it.
And if we're being honest, rhabdo is kind of where the rabbit hole, it's the rhabdo hole I want to go down today. And, it is, I don't know if exacerbated is the right word, but it's brought on by the combination of exertion greater than the body is acclimated to, I guess is one way we could say it. Usually dehydration, and then heat, some combination of those elements. True or false?
So kind of true, I guess. And the reason I say kind of is because most of the time I feel like the impression is that when someone gets rhabdo, it's related to their lack of preparedness for the exercise bout. And the way that I like to think of it is, rather than as lack of preparedness, it's pushing themselves past 100% fatigue doing an exercise. And the reason that I think that's important is because we find that it happens to people who are not necessarily ill prepared for the exercises, but that have like a high drive to perform. So we don't, in my experience, I haven't really seen that it happens a lot to people that are in the worst condition. In a class setting, is usually happening to those that are in like the middle of the road or like a little bit on the higher end of fitness. And so they tend to have a higher drive or compliance to keep pushing themselves or keep trying to complete the exercises. So I guess it's kind of true, but I wanted to provide that little tiny kind of qualifier because at least what I've seen, it's so difficult to even test people early on, early enough to really have any hard data on it, because they usually start exhibiting signs before I can even fitness test them.
Interesting. So you are saying it's not necessarily, well, let's say for recruit school or even advanced schools, it's not necessarily the candidates that are showing up in the worst condition, but those that do have some level of fitness and the drive to push
Yes.
themselves past. Interesting.
Yeah.
And so what does it look like? We'll talk about interventions in a moment, but what does it look like when someone, I guess, when should our, man, I'm talking in circles. When should our red flags be flying? That's what I want to know.
Yeah. So when should you sound the alarm bells? Or so I think of it like a dial in my head, and you have, when the dial is going to the right, you're on the higher end of risk, or like you should be on high alert for someone that could possibly fall prey to it, is when they are physically fatigued or tired and they continue to push themselves beyond 100% fatigue. And I define that as failure in the concentric phase of muscle action and subsequent failure in the eccentric phase of muscle action. So after someone has reached failure in the concentric phase of, let's say, a push-up, so now they cannot push away from the ground completely, and then the instructor might say, get in a plank position, extend your arms and lock out your arms and hold it there. So if they're in this plank position and they are having difficulty holding themselves in that position because of fatigue, and then they start to lack the ability to hold themselves in that position, or they continue to try to push themselves through a concentric failure and end up eccentrically starting to fatigue.
And so if we are the instructor, we are needing to look for that failure. Is that what you have got your eye on?
Yeah. So when I'm looking at a class, I'm looking at who's having difficulty in the concentric phase of muscle action. And I'm just keeping an eye on those people. And I'm kind of trying to see if they are they concurrently exposed to heat, like at that time, or kind of like frequently throughout the day. Have they had access to water? Do they have history of some sort of heat stroke or rhabdo in the past, which will put them at higher risk? Usually males are higher on the concern log in my head than females are. Not that females can't get it, but that males typically get it more often.
And do you think it is that drive to push past or something else?
That's a great question. I think that I don't know that I have a good answer for that. I would be speculating.
Huh. And maybe it is just because typically that's the population that we're immersed in. Typically many more males. So I guess just statistically, maybe it's just what we see. Maybe,
perhaps.
Interesting. So as the instructor, when you're starting to see these, the concentric, subsequent eccentric failure, what is your intervention?
Normally I feel like the best approach is just explaining what the signs and symptoms are, and then waiting to see if anything manifests, because you can have what you believe to be an appropriate, well, I shouldn't say appropriate, but you have what you believe to be somewhat, for example, if I were to fitness test someone at the very beginning of the academy and I want them to give me like their maximum push-ups in 1 minute or maximum sit-ups in 1 minute, do their best 1.5 mile run, we usually don't get any rhabdo from that. But these people, their output is high for a short amount of time, but it's not repetitive throughout the day, right? So I'm not doing a push-up test frequently throughout the day. if I pulled back, so let's say that my maximum ability to do push-ups might be 60. And if I can do 60 push-ups in a minute, great. Well, then if I break that down into, like, let's say 15 repetitions per bout, I may be able every hour to get 15 repetitions, and then 15 repetitions again an hour later, and 15 repetitions an hour later. So my capacity to do more repetitions throughout the day will be way beyond 60, but I've never done any more than 15. So when the instructor pulls down intensity, believing that that's appropriate, but they do it more frequently, they're like, we never went past 15. So while that could be true in isolation, it's the cumulative number of repetitions that they've done, plus their exposure to heat, plus their access to water or previous history, that provides like an accelerant to that. So oftentimes instructors believe that they can reduce any incidence of people having heat illness or some sort of relation to rhabdo. And so they pull down intensity and make it much lower intensity more frequently throughout the day, believing that that's going to be the antidote. And then they have an uptick and they're like, what the heck? How could this be possible? How could we get more? And so if you're seeing this in blooms where it's happening, where you're getting clusters of people that are suffering from like the same kind of signs or symptoms, then and they're seeing like they're feeling pain that feels completely out of line with the types of exercises they've been doing. Like they're like, I know the type of exercise I've done, but my body is so sore, unreasonably sore in comparison to what I've done. I've seen a change in the color of my urine. They generally feel like maybe they have swelling in the muscle or swelling in the joint. And normally when I give them what those signs and symptoms are at the beginning of the academy, it gives them better context to understand, okay, well, this is even a possibility because, I didn't even know that this existed before, or if it did exist, it was in other populations, not necessarily like they don't really necessarily think it will happen to them. And then if they start having signs, I honestly think it's best to have people checked out, even though, they might have to stay overnight for observation. They might have to have evidence that their numbers are coming down in a way that's more favorable to not stressing the kidneys,
So it's the repetitive nature and not necessarily the excessive intensity, if I'm hearing you correctly. So it's not the fact that the training session, the physical training session, is super high intensity. It's the fact that multiple sets of the same types of exercises were completed. Mm-hmm. Did I track correctly on that?
That's what I've been seeing.
Okay.
That's what I've been seeing.
So I was really frustrated. I think it was, now I'm losing track of time, but I think it was last spring. It could have been spring of 24 when a Navy SEAL went in and conducted a physical fitness training session for his college lacrosse team. Mm-hmm. And it was a lot of burpees and a lot mm-hmm. of upper body. Do you see, because that's what I usually hear, push-ups and burpees. Mm-hmm. Do you also see rhabdo from excessive lower body exercises?
Yeah. I mean, do I personally see it from lower body? So it's usually, sometimes it's isolated to certain muscle groups and sometimes it's not. Sometimes people don't have any local muscular pain. they just feel like they're having difficulty eating, or they've been vomiting and they saw a change in the color of their urine. So not necessarily localized. Can it happen in the lower body? Heck yeah, it can happen. It can happen in the lower body as well. I don't know that I have any specific memories of people having that happen in the lower body, but usually it's just more diffuse. It's like generalized.
So when we are planning PT sessions, so we're pre-planning PT sessions, what are some, I guess, best practices for consideration when we are programming?
So I would say best practices are focusing on discipline and quality, number one, over volume all day long in the first phase of training. So I like to break up the training into phases in my head. So the first phase is focused on discipline and making sure that you have those granular aspects of form, corrective recommendations on like running form, for example, or making sure that they know exercise identification, they understand formation, they understand how to exit formation, how to get back in formation, and to create some degree of like challenge from a team perspective, so that like what I think is effective is to create opportunities for them to solve problems collectively in the beginning, so you can see how they work together, and you'll see them get frustrated, you'll see them get mad with each other, you'll see leaders emerge, you'll see some people get quiet. You just see different behavioral traits at the very beginning, and that's purposeful because that's to give them an opportunity to really discover their own leadership qualities, or maybe their own position in the group. But also the instructors have an opportunity to observe their behavior, and then to create an opportunity for them to showcase discipline. Has to do with very little volume and has to do with very high quality. So I think focusing on that in the first 2 weeks of that exercise acclimatization, where they're exposed to maybe heat, but they're not really exposed to a lot of volume. Or if they're exposed to a little bit of volume with demonstrating perfect form, then they're doing it in an environment that they don't have to deal with extreme heat. So maybe inside of like an air conditioned area or a covered area. So I find that those are the best strategies in order to delay the onset of an overzealous group of instructors that really are eager to have the recruits question their own willingness to do the job. Because I think that instructors in general are really looking to do the right thing and figuring out who is psychologically prepared to do this job. And so what they use is physical stress in replacement for that psychological stress, believing that they're one and the same. And while they can be used in that way, when you do it too early on in the training program, you expose them unnecessarily to overuse injuries that are distractions from the real goal. So those overuse injuries usually occur in those people who are of medium fitness to higher fitness, because the ones that are too unfit to continue, they quit too early on to hurt themselves. So they stop performing the exercise because they just don't have it in them.
Talk to me about those opportunities for problem solving skills. Like, what would that look like? That psychological stressor due to giving them a problem to solve?
Well, what I like to do, it's like, you can't tell anyone. So just keep it between us. This is
And my tens of podcast listeners.
yeah. And the millions of people out there. When they get into formation, I have them get into formation and I make sure that they're in position like PT formation, physical training formation. And then I tell them to go back to the wall. And then I tell them to get into PT formation facing east or facing west. And what they'll instinctively do is they turn in the same spot that they're in, not realizing that the front of the line is the back of the line and the back of the line is the front of the line. So they flip the formation. So then they realize, no, I'm facing east, but now I'm in the wrong position. Now I'm in the back. So then they have to run to the front of that formation because the instructor should be on that side. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So to create some degree of confusion, but using direction as a reference point, especially in law enforcement, because over time through in the third phase of training, we want them to be familiarized with the direction of travel. And so when they're running, they have to know, am I running westbound? Am I eastbound? Like if you have to describe that on the radio and you don't know what direction you're running, then nobody knows where you're at. So using crossroads and stuff like that is one of the layers that we start to throw into the program, like in the end. But at the beginning, I like to showcase this or have them try to work together as a team to figure out how they can, and then I time them. So then they're working against time. So, and I keep changing the direction so that they are confused and that it creates a degree of stress and confusion for them. But that's also like a warm up, or it could be, it is definitely expected for there to be a learning curve and for them to do it wrong. They will do it wrong, and that's okay because we know that they'll do it wrong. It's just that we want them to figure it out, and we want to see how long it takes for a leader to emerge.
I wish I could remember. I went to present at a seminar with our mutual friend, Bridget Melton from Georgia Southern. And she had the football strength coach staff put together a hands-on training for them. And it was something about, there were kettlebells and there were metal weight plates, but there were all kinds of rules and regulations with it. So like you had to walk across the weight plates. So a person would have to put one down and then take one from the person behind them and put one down and, progressing across. But then you couldn't go back without a certain number of people. Like there were these just really, really specific rules, and there were different rules with the kettlebells. And it took these police officers and firefighters who were veterans, it took them a good long time to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
But they were moving, they were lifting the 45-pound weight plates, they were lifting the kettlebells. Is that something like you're describing? Would that work too?
So the way that I would probably not do that with a new class, because I feel like that's a carrot, and they're not allowed to have that yet. So they can't get the carrot yet. And so we'll do some team building stuff similar to that, using other types of drills like numbers on the floor, like we throw these plastic like numbered tiles on the floor, and they have to, but this is like later on in where it's more about like that cognitive training coupled with fatigue. But we'll do that in phase 3, not in phase 1. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, similar to that. But we have team building exercises that we do, and we actually fold those in because they're a little bit more cognitive. But we fold those in later on so that they can start to kind of crystallize, so they can see the impact of fatigue and their ability to have to concentrate at the same time,
I feel like I might have skipped an important point, and I think you alluded to it, but maybe I'm not picking up what you're laying down. So you talked about initializing the training with more cognitive stressors than physical stressors, and then work into the higher intensity physical stressors a little bit later. Is that because you see more heat illnesses and rhabdo cases early on in the academy? Is that the reason?
Yeah. So, like altitude acclimatization and exercise acclimatization and heat acclimatization take about 2 weeks to complete. So we want to try to create an environment where they're psychologically stressed and the physical stress is lower. And then as they move through the program, like they get to week 2, week 3, the physical stress starts to mount and the psychological stress starts to kind of settle in a little bit. And it's a little bit more, it's reduced relative to their physical stress. So, yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about. I just didn't describe it very well.
I didn't ask the question very well. I was reading your mind, though. So that makes sense. Is it possible to, if we have two of the factors, if we have heat and we have pushing the exercise intensity, but we do not have dehydration. So we have heat and exercise intensity, but hydration level is optimal, fine, very good. Still possible, but less probable for rhabdo?
Yes, still possible.
Okay.
Less probable because I say that because dehydration is an accelerant to the development, just as heat exposure is an accelerant, but it can happen without conditions of heat and it can happen without conditions of dehydration.
Assuming, don't know this, but assuming absent heat or absent dehydration, the intensity probably would be required to be higher, just guessing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the effort would have to be high for that to develop, because otherwise there's no stimulus for it to manifest, right? So I think that the effort would have to have some degree of usually eccentric muscle failure. Usually some sort of eccentric muscle failure.
Okay. So now let's step away from the instructor perspective and let's step into the shoes of the candidate or the recruit. How, as a candidate or a recruit, can you set yourself up for success in an academy setting regarding heat-related illness and rhabdo?
Right. That's such a great question. So I definitely think, preparing your body for any sort of physical stressor is an important part of, you want to try to acclimatize yourself before you actually get there. And so if I know that I'm going to join an academy at the end of the month, in that month, if I'm training, I'm not going to be training inside of air conditioning in a gym, like running on a treadmill, because I know that I'm going to be outside, running outside in PT clothes, whatever that is. I may not have the shoes, my favorite shoes that I like. Maybe I'll have, these uniform black shoes that have to be worn when you're doing PT. So I'd try to get those shoes. I would try to replicate the environment that I was going to be training in and use progressive overload within that month to make sure that I could mount to that, to that start day, to give myself the most opportunity to not have to deal with overuse injuries but also be aware that I should have a mindset that I want to be compliant to rules, but not push my body physically with the hopes to showcase compliance to an instructor.
Say that again.
Not push my body physically with the hopes to showcase my compliance to an instructor.
So we're still performing to our best ability, but not to past
Right. Yes.
best of our ability. That makes sense. I want to underscore the preparation that Kelly was talking about. If you know you have a month, getting acclimated to that temperature, getting acclimated to the exercising at all. Like, you cannot show up on day one hoping to wing it.
Yeah.
It's not going to bode well.
Right. Yeah, because you're going to be in pain, right? You're going to be the reality is that if you're not prepared, you're going to make yourself a target, because you have to be, and this is going to sound really weird, but your mindset has to be that you are going to train yourself to be hard to kill. Because if your mindset is, I know other people that have done this, that have gotten through the academy and they're not in great shape. I know other people that are really out of shape and they're cops too. So I can do it if they can do it. If that's your ideology when you go in, that you're going to try to fly under the radar, that you're going into a hornet's nest. You know, don't think for a second that is going to fly.
Yeah, amen. It's really interesting. I was having a conversation with our friend Mike Connor the other day, and he said it was just off the cuff and it was so funny, but he said, don't break your toys or you won't be able to play with them anymore. And he was talking about from the perspective of, say, an instructor. If you break your candidates,
yeah,
you're not going to be able to play with them anymore. I just thought it was pretty funny and actually really smart.
Yeah, it is. So it's interesting because when you think of like every instructor has the same goal in mind so that they can produce the best quality recruit and candidate possible. But everyone's idea of that is different in their head. So my understanding of what that recruit looks like is different than the next guy whose idea of what that recruit looks like is totally different. So one person may be gauging it only on running capacity. And they're like, that guy's going to be a great cop because he can run, like, and run and run and run. And I'm like, well, that's not the only metric, you know, or this guy could do push-ups all day long. Okay. But that only goes so far because there's so many other elements. You can't just have one bucket filled. It's not just one pillar. And I tell people that we're like farmers. Some years the grapes are good and we have to make wine. And some years the grapes, they look a little rough and we have to farm them just the same because we still have to produce the wine. So it's going to be more of a challenge for the farmer to figure out how we can salvage that crop and still produce a product that's acceptable.
Ding, 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 ding. And taking it one step further, the farmer's job is easier on the years.
Yeah.
The crop is beautiful, plump little grapes.
Exactly. But that's not the measure of a good farmer.
Keep going.
The measure of a good farmer is when you have some jacked up grapes and you can still make some really good wine. You just have to be a little more suave with how you foster them. and you got to get the sugar out of the grape. You know what I mean?
That's so good. You said something a few right turns ago that I meant to stop you at that time and I forgot. But just in case someone listening doesn't know what progressive overload means, give us the Kelly Kennedy exercise physiology definition.
Progressive overload is a small, gradual increase in frequency, intensity, or time of a given exercise so that the body can acclimate itself to higher demands and make reasonable improvements while still reducing unnecessary risk of injury.
And small incremental increases in frequency, intensity, or time. So you're not telling me I can just jack them all up at the same time. More frequency, more intensity, more time, more.
Right. Yeah. So the emotional reaction to most unbridled, highly enthusiastic instructors is that at the beginning, they want to showcase their authority, their dominance, their aptitude for physical work, and do it all on the first couple days. And you weed people out for the wrong reasons that way, and you end up having to recycle recruits that would not have had to be recycled otherwise because they pushed themselves past fatigue and lost their footing and fell and broke their arms, or had an ACL tear in like the second day of the academy. Whoopsie. Well, that's a really long recovery. And now you have to deal with that injury. And these are unnecessary injuries that usually have no after action. There's no discussion afterwards about like what could have been better. How could we have done this better? So we're making cars, and sometimes the doors are flying off, and we blame the car, not the fact that we actually didn't calibrate that door right. You know what I mean? There are some things we can do to like circumvent the results that we're getting. And if you're getting a particular result, what it means is that something in the training process has gone awry. But reflexively, the instructors sometimes feel like it's about blame. And I think that instructors need to have an opportunity to, and I think that this is probably the biggest reason that I started Fit to Enforce, is because it's not the instructor's fault for not knowing why this is happening. And it's not the instructor's fault for not understanding how those patterns can manifest, because they don't have support, because their departments, their agencies don't give them training on that. They're not specialists in that. And oftentimes they're trying to navigate a subject matter that's so foreign to them. The only thing they know is grit. And they've done it before. They were in the military before. 30 years ago, 20 years ago, they were in the military, in basic training, I should say. And it's not the instructor's fault for not knowing why these patterns are occurring and not knowing how to analyze them. And the command staff is also not exposed to what we're exposed to and I say we as in the exercise science community, to know that we have to analyze these injury trends to make a change so that it doesn't happen in the future by changing our behavior in the next class, right? But what happens is that the command staff sees it as an appropriate hiring process that the pretest must be the problem, that the fact that they're millennials are the problem, or Gen Z or Gen A or wherever we're going after Gen Z. I don't even know what that is anymore. But the recruits are staying the same age and we're getting older every year. So I have no idea. Like, I don't even know what generation we're in right now. I just found out that the way I wear my socks is very uncool. I didn't know that.
Oh, do you wear ankle socks? Like the little no-shows?
I do. Is that so? It's so passe, evidently.
It's a no-no, but listen, you will pry my no-show socks out of my cold, dead hands.
Yeah, so I really try to be hip. I really try to be hip with these young recruits. But yeah, it's funny because I just don't think, I think it's really easy. It's a very sensitive thing, this whole instructor trainee situation, because you have instructors that are amazing, but they're not familiar with analyzing trends. Similar to if you throw me out into a narcotics squad to try to investigate some sort of narcotics something, I don't even know what they're called. I don't even know what I'm doing. So how could someone judge me for my inability to be a cop? I don't think that that's reasonable, for the same reason that I don't think it's reasonable for me to judge an instructor for not knowing best practices in physical fitness. I don't even think that's their fault. But I think that's and to kind of backtrack a little bit is that I think that was probably the biggest reason that I started Fit to Enforce, is because it's very easy to blame the instructor and to say, well, it's the instructors that are being abusive, when the instructors have zero support. They're trying to do the best that they can with the tools that they've been given, which usually is not a lot. The departments sometimes are small and they don't have the training. They don't have the training volume that would create a cascade or an ecosystem of training from within. So they have to get training from outside. And they create that ecosystem for themselves in a way that they just with each other, but they don't have the experience. Those that they're commiserating with don't have the experience either. And then when they gain the experience based on making mistakes or getting cluster injuries, or sometimes unreasonable exposure to exercise too soon, too fast, those instructors become gold, and then they get promoted. Bye-bye. Or then they go, or then they transfer to another unit, and they're like, all that experience, where's the best practice there? This is what I've said over and over again, and it's not the first time anybody's ever said it, so it's not like I coined it, but there are no new problems. There's just new people. And so when people get really defensive about like me bringing up the fact that something is happening as a trend and that we have to stop it, what happens is that they feel like I'm attacking them. And really, it's not about them. It's about the fact that it could be them or the person next to them, because quite honestly, this is not a new problem. These are new people that believe this is a new problem. They're like, I've never heard of this before. Actually, this has been around for a long time, because I've been doing this 26 years. And I had a master's degree in exercise phys. I didn't even know rhabdo existed. It really wasn't popularized until 2004 or 5. But it showed up in an article in 2001 in a law enforcement trainer magazine. And the defensive tactics sergeant brought it to me and said, have you ever heard of this? I was like, no, never in my life have I ever heard of that. But it was a condition that happened in basic training recruits and the military. And they were saying sometimes it happens in police academies. And so he said, oh, I thought you would like to look at the article. So what I did is I started folding that information in with my own research on this topic. It was like the chupacabra of the class. It was like the Bigfoot. This was the unicorn that nobody had ever seen before. And I started talking about it like, hey, this is something that can happen. So keep your eyes out for this. Never seen it. Didn't know that it existed, but I know that somehow we might be able to see it in the future. And so I go out to PT one day and one of the recruits is missing. And I'm like, well, where's this guy? And they're like, oh, I don't know. He had some sort of problem. So he's out after the first week. And that's what it was. And they're like, something's wrong with his kidneys. And I was like, what? And this was way back, like 2002. So I was like, is this rhabdo? And they're like, I don't know what you just said. Like, I have no idea what that just means. And so I was just, my interest was piqued because I'm like, this is the thing that we've been talking about for at least a year. And I've never seen it before. We didn't even know it existed. So it was my first exposure to that. And that's why it's become a particular area of interest for me in a police academy setting in particular, because oftentimes they're just like dehydration, heat illness, and there's a common thread there.
So interesting, because this did not occur to me when I asked you about the fitness level of the people. I had a case of rhabdo in my recruit academy where I was baby firefighter Annette.
Really?
Yes. And it wasn't even, he did not go to the academy because he already had his credentials. So he did like a 2-week in-house academy, and he was huge. He was probably 500 pounds, and he was hospitalized with rhabdo. I completely blocked that out until just now.
Isn't that interesting? So now he'll be more susceptible to it happening again.
Yeah,
I don't. Life.
I do not know if, because he was actually let go.
Okay.
So I don't know. I think he went back to Southern Illinois, and who knows what he's doing now. But yeah, right. Interesting. I completely blacked that out.
I think personally, so it's interesting because I think it's more common than we realize. I think that there is no way to capture the information because every institute is in a silo. And if they have a hospitalization, it goes through HR, workers' comp, and there's no way to really know who's got it, how frequently it's happening across the state. So this is a constellation that connects every academy probably in the nation without seeing a pattern, because no one really has a lens with which to view it to be able to identify those patterns.
And you usually don't hear about it unless, unfortunately, a candidate dies.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, on that happy note, Kelly Kennedy, I know we talked about your pretend dogs last time, and I just feel like since I still have not met the dogs, we should probably talk about the pretend dogs again. Would you like to tell the listeners about your dogs?
I have 2 little dogs. They're really cute. They're white, Bodie and Kippy, and they're brothers. And, I swear they exist. I swear. My mom has them right now.
Ladies and gentlemen, I've stayed with her 3 times. We have filmed 2 podcasts. The dogs aren't there now. They weren't there last time. What am I supposed to think? She sends me pictures of little white fluffy dogs, but I do not think she owns them.
Yes, I do own them. I'm going to bring them. You're going to hear them barking when you visit me the next time. Is that for Neurosport?
Oh, I just found out I get to be the MC again.
Ooh, I'm speaking this year.
I know you are. So I get to introduce you.
Oh, yay. That's
I texted Jamie and I'm like, I didn't get my crap together, my poop in a group in time to apply. Do you need an MC? And she's like, yes, ma'am.
Awesome.
Yeah. Cool. I need to get Jamie on the podcast too. Oh.
Yeah.
I'm going to write that down actually because I'll forget. Well, Kelly Kennedy, as always, my friend, it has been a pleasure. I guess I'll probably see you not until Neurosports, but I will see you at Neurosports because I don't think there's any other things we're doing in the meantime.
Right.
All right. February in Florida.
Yes. February in Florida.
I'll put the Neurosports link in the show notes too, because it is the coolest conference.
Yeah. And then you can put my information down if you want.
I will. It is done.
Oh, excellent. Well, thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Your microphone and listeners.
We are going to drop the mic. It's AZ and KK, and we are officially out. Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you.